everyone. I'm really pumped about today's session. For those that you don't know, Cake. So Cake, I'm a co-founder of Cake, and we've just done Startmate, and such an incredible opportunity, such an amazing journey has really helped increase, the ambition within the Cake team, and out of the back of the accelerator. Now we're off, and we've got a big round done, and some global expansion stuff happening. So, I really wish that opportunity for all of you, and I give you a lot of credit for joining in today and learning about Startmate and Open House, I think it's now called. So we're going to hear about an innovation by Startmate, the sort of awesome stuff you would expect from such a cutting edge team. So I think everyone's had about 2 minutes to join, so I think we might get started. So yeah, welcome. As I say, we've got two of the greats from the Aussie ecosystem today, Lauren Kaplan and Sascha Kerber. I've been fortunate enough to be hanging out a bit with Lauren and Sascha lately, and being part of the accelerator. Sascha was keeping us motivated and excited and aligned for the last 12 weeks, and I know firsthand, how incredible Startmate is. So I think today Lauren's going to lead, and she's got some slides to run through, and I think Lauren and Sascha will do a little bit of a tag team to get through some really cool info, and then I'll share some of my experience as well, from office hours right through to our Startmate time, which will give you some really good insights into how it all works from a founder perspective. And look, this is a Q&A, so please use the chat feature, pop your questions in. This is an AMA, sorry. We'll definitely make sure that we cover any questions as we go. So over to you, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jace. It's great to be here. And yes, Sascha and I are a package deal. So you get both of us today walking through, what is Startmate and what are we doing both with the accelerator and, as you mentioned, Jason, our new open house program, which includes what has previously been known as office hours. For those of you who have just joined my location, I'm actually at South Start right now. So I'm in the basement of the National Wine Centre, and surrounded by incredible bottles. But just in case anyone's wondering, I'm not just drinking at work. So what I thought would be helpful for everyone today is if we talk about more so what we're looking for in our founders that come through Startmate. You'll get to hear from Jason at the end around, exactly what he mentioned there, what Startmate gave him in terms of leveling up that ambition that Cake had, and what that's meant practically for their goals. But we like to talk about this notion of, from ambition to accelerator. How do you know that your business is right for the program? When do you time your application based on what is going to make most sense for you in the business, and for that inflection point that you could experience through Startmate? So to just touch on that a little bit, I think that the question that we are always asked is, am I too early? Am I too late? And that question, the answer is almost, it depends. There is no too early and no too late to go through Startmate in general terms. But for every company, we believe there's kind of a perfect time that aligns, with what you'll be able to get out of the program. So in thinking about from ambition to accelerator, what I wanted to cover today, or what we wanted to cover today is your idea or business accelerator ready? What is Startmate? What do we look for in our founders? And I guess, what does the process look like from here in terms of the application process and open house, and how you can make the most of it? So in terms of being accelerator ready, and I'd love to get Sascha to chime in here as well, given his additional experience with the past few cohorts. I think accelerator ready to us means, are you ready to talk to people about what you're doing? Because the number one discipline that we drive through the program is getting out there and talking to customers. So that can be true for an idea where you're looking for further validation. It can be true for an MVP that you're trying to get people to participate in and engage. And it can also be true for kind of paid customer conversations as well. But if you're still formulating, some of the thinking there, and don't think you'll be able to leverage that 12-week program to get out there and hustle with customers, that's possibly a little bit of a screen in terms of when you would be able to make the most of it. And on that same vein, can the customers kind of test, play, get involved, give feedback that's actually going to give you this iterative process over the next 12 weeks to shape your thinking, and mean that where you end up at the end of that 12 weeks is very different to the place that you started at? Because we really want to see that kind of unit of progress, or the growth that you could then experience through the program. I'll pass over to Sascha perhaps to talk through a couple of these as well. Sascha, do you want to jump in with these next few?
Yeah, totally. Look, I think just kind of echoing what Lauren was just talking about, we are stage agnostic and industry agnostic. So the concept of right time is really actually just linked to this idea of a unit of progress. And I can use a few examples to illustrate what we mean by that. But really, you know, Startmate, we're not a startup school, and we don't have a curriculum that we run you through. It's very much kind of a buffet where we try and give you all the resources you could possibly need to make as much progress as you possibly can on whatever problem you're trying to solve in that 3-month window. And those problems are very varied. So even just looking at the cohort that Jason came through, we had everything from kind of lab stage, deep tech, trying to turn seaweed into biodegradable plastic. And for them, you know, the question was, well, is this the right time? And for them, it was the right time because there was a very distinct unit of progress that they needed to make over the 3 months, which was actually just prove that our science works. And we surrounded them with a bunch of our deep tech mentors on how to make as much progress as you possibly can in a short time frame in a lab. And that was their 3-month goal. And by the end of the program, they proved that their science works. They can make biodegradable plastic pellets, and that was the kind of key to success. And they've managed to raise around at the end of the program off the back of that unit of progress. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Jason, for example, you know, had a product in market as a software business, so not deep tech. And for them, it was really just like, we need to make as much customer progress as we possibly can. And Jason will kind of share some of this a bit further down the session. But all of the goals there are around talking to as many customers as possible and iterating with that feedback as quickly as possible. So it's really just, are you set up to make immense progress in 3 months? And if you're at that point where kind of a suite of resources, whether that's financial resources, mentoring, access to customer networks, will help you do that, then kind of Startmate's the right time.
Awesome. Thanks, Sash. So before we go too much further into the ins and outs of the application process, I guess at a high level, you know, what is Startmate? It used to be very well known for the accelerator program, but of course, over the last couple of years, it's become a lot more than that. Our accelerator is actually now 10 years old. And we're into our 11th year. And over that time, we've backed 150 companies, and their total combined valuation is upwards of $1 billion. So we've had some incredible success for our portfolio companies over that 10-year period, and continue to bring in incredible founders in each cohort like Jason and the Cape team. But alongside that, we are really trying to build out the whole pipeline of what it means to build an incredible startup ecosystem. And that also speaks to the talent side of things, which is where our fellowship program comes in. We're now into our second year, almost third year of the fellowship, and really looking to funnel incredible talent into their very first startup roles across a range of different kind of specific areas, from product, engineering, marketing, chief of staff roles, all that sort of stuff. So we become that pipeline for talent for our portfolio companies, and we're expanding that into different verticals over the course of this year as well. And then on the other side, on the investment side, and I think Jason will agree, where the real value came for Cake was really being exposed to all investors across the Australian and New Zealand ecosystem, from, you know, your individual angels and kind of high net worth individuals to the larger funds, really having that spotlight on you from a fundraising perspective. And we want to take that further by actually bringing up the curve some of our earlier angels who, you know, may want to start the investing journey but haven't necessarily taken that first step to write a check, which is where our First Believers program comes in, early stage angel investing training program, or confidence and network building program, I should say. We don't train, we merely support people through the process. And then the Small Bets Fund, which was related to that in terms of taking even earlier bets on our founders pre-accelerator, which we're kicking off later this year. Anything else to add on that overview, Sascha?
I think the kind of key message here, and it comes across in this slide a little bit, but what Startmate's really evolved into is trying to be the best place for founders to build businesses across Australia and New Zealand. So whatever problem you face as a founder, whether it's getting access to capital and mentoring networks, kind of been there, done that before, founders who can help you with their learnings, or whether it's access to the best network of talent through the fellowship programs, so that when you're making those early hires, you can make the best hires you possibly can. Or whether it's access to kind of the best network of early stage believers and investors. Like any problem that you're solving as a founder, Startmate's trying to create the most fertile environment for you to be able to do that. So I think that's the kind of key message that stitches it all together.
Yeah, and bonus points to anyone who can figure out who in this photograph is actually photoshopped in. We had almost all the team together, but somebody is not really there.
Is it Ryan at the back?
Yeah, you know.
I've got inside knowledge.
Yeah, you do. He's our New Zealand team member. We haven't yet met him in person, but the team has also grown pretty exponentially this year as well. So we're trying to do a lot. Is true. Were you going to say something, Jason? Yeah.
From a founder's perspective, it's so like incredibly refreshing and motivating because Startmate feels like a startup too. You know, they're talking about solving the problem and being, you know, customer focused and problem focused, and they're constantly getting feedback and iterating. And it's really it's awesome to see that, you know, that leadership is there for you as you're going through the program. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. So on to, I guess, what matters to everyone on the call today on the founder scouting side of things. So as Sascha mentioned, our founders come from every discipline, background, industry stage. There's no commonality across the kinds of founders we see. And even looking at the Summer 21 cohort, you'll get a sense of just the breadth of people we have involved there. So what makes a Startmate founder is this unifying principle that actually we see cutting across all of our programs, this concept of ambition. You know, are you ready to kind of put that milestone further out than you would even feel comfortable doing so? And how can you draw in the resources and hustle to kind of make something possible that would otherwise seem, you know, a real stretch? And that's the kind of essence that we're looking for in all of the participants across all of our programs. So, you know, how do you quantify that ambition? Well, it is that intangible quality, but there are things that we, you know, over the course of all of our selection processes start to see over and over again and become the kind of lens through which we're assessing founders and their applications and building the relationships on that basis. So again, I want to pass to, actually, Sascha, do you want to kick off some of this side of things as well? Because you've seen so many.
Yeah, sure. It's a really interesting question, and everyone, like, at the start of every selection process goes, oh, like, how can I cut through the best? How can I describe what I'm doing in the most favorable way so that Startmate thinks I'm ambitious and will actually kind of funnel me through the selection process? And this first point on this slide that Lauren's got here is really kind of the key message. It's often just about being able to demonstrate that you're obsessed with the problem, and that kind of comes through in a couple of ways. The first is like being able to articulate why you are crazy about solving this problem. Like, is there something in your past professional life or personal life that has just absolutely made you obsessed with solving this problem to a degree where you're going to be willing to get up, and being a founder is really hard, as I'm sure Jason will attest to. And there will be times where you've got to get up every single day and just kind of run through walls and be relentless. And the founders that demonstrate the capacity to be able to do that are those ones that are just so obsessed with the problem that almost nothing can kind of stop them from getting back up the next day and running as hard at solving it as they possibly can. So it's being able to really clearly articulate what that is, and then also what is the insight that you have about that problem? Like, what is it about your background or that experience that actually gives you a unique angle that might not have been seen before, or you're trying to solve that problem in a way that maybe somebody else hasn't attempted before. It's really what's your unique insight onto that problem space, and being able to cut that across in a pretty short application or conversation is probably the biggest thing that'll give you an edge. Do you want to jump through anything else there, Lauren?
Yeah, I think the only other thing, like that definitely matters most through the application process. Like the first part you have to jump through is this written application phase, and that's where those points that Sascha raised are key. And then I guess as we move into more of the interview processes, we're actually looking for some of those more intangible qualities around that, that natural bias toward action, no matter what, and something that is, again, very hard to quantify, but really critical in terms of founder success is when you see those founders who are not prepared to take a roadblock as an answer and will in fact try to find their way through it, as opposed to, I guess, blaming external factors or, you know, this happened, so I didn't this. And it's really that pushing through those boundaries and pushing through the walls, as Sascha mentioned, that we're really trying to get a sense of a founder's capacity to do that and to be the solution in all cases. So with that, I guess, talking about a high level overview of that selection process and when these key stages kick in. So the application process for the Winter 21 Accelerator closes on June 2nd. By June 10th, we will have reviewed and long listed applications. And I guess it's really helpful to understand the kind of culling mechanism that happens here. It's really difficult. And I think we would be the first to say we will definitely miss amazing companies. We will definitely not surface every incredible founder. And it doesn't mean that the business or the founder isn't doing amazing things. It's a scale problem and a kind of how do we use the assets that we have in our mentor community, what they lean into, what they're curious about, and that ultimately drives the end selection. But from the application close date, where we might get upwards of 500 applications, we will be trying to cull that to somewhere around the 40 to 50 mark, if I'm correct, Sascha.
I might try and stretch it a little this time, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Typically what it's been, I might try and push it a bit higher.
Yeah, we definitely see, you know, in that top 150, there are some really difficult decisions to make. And as I mentioned, it comes down to how do our mentors who are reviewing the applications, how do they lean into particular founders, particular problem spaces where they know they can add value? And that's ultimately what makes the decision, as well as us going, can this founder really leverage Startmate right now, and would be the best place to give them that spot. So from that long listing process, which again, for 500 to 50, it's quite significant. We move to interview roulette day, where the founders, and Jason will remember this, it's like 15-minute windows with 10 mentors, I think over the course of 3 hours. It's really rapid, back to back. You'll be asked the same questions of everyone, because every mentor is individually trying to form a view and test what they are comfortable with and uncomfortable with about your business over that 3-hour period. Sascha, do you want to go into the in-depth side of things?
Yeah, sure. So you kind of progress through the process, as Lauren was saying, and I'll get Jason to describe what it felt like as well, going through interview roulette. But it is this kind of quick fire, 10-minute by 10 mentors, back to back to back to back with one break, which is a bit of a whirlwind. And then if you're successful from that, we typically go from about 40 to 50 companies to 25 to 30. And then that kind of final shortlist of 30 companies gets invited to an in-depth interview. And basically what that is and what that looks like is you get an hour-long interview with 2 to 4 mentors that are actually kind of really clued into your industry, have experience working in it before, and they will dive into the specifics of your business and to try and understand a little bit more about those things that we were talking about before. So, you know, what's your connection to the problem? What's your insight? But then also, how have you started to validate some of your assumptions? You know, if you're at the point of customer traction, what does your traction look like? What are you starting to learn from the early customers that you've got in your product? It'll really kind of dive into each of those key elements of your business to try and understand in a bit more depth whether you're a good fit for Startmate. And again, linking back to being able to kind of make that unit of progress. And then at the very end of that process, the mentors make a final recommendation, which the rest of the mentors will read. There's a big write-up that they do. They'll read it and kind of make a final yes/no vote on whether you should be made a final offer.
Yeah, and I think, I'm not sure we actually made it super clear up front, but I guess the money that we're investing ultimately comes from the mentors who are part of this process, which is why we're leaning on them so heavily. But it's actually what makes our program so unique and special, because they have skin in the game in this decision that's being made. And so you get an automatic champion. When you have an offer, you know, you've got, 50 to 100 mentors squarely in your corner, ready to see you progress to that next level, which is pretty amazing. So tips for standing out in a crowd. This is what you ultimately all want to hear today. And we've touched on it a little bit early, but, if you think about your written application, this is the hardest gate to get through, because it's a sheer volume play where we have many mentors reviewing 40 odd applications over a couple of hours. They're going to spend a couple of minutes in that initial phase reviewing every application. How do you clearly and compellingly articulate the problem and making it positioned as a worthwhile problem to be solved? And what is your compelling approach or solution? A worthwhile problem doesn't have to be kind of a wicked problem. Like, there are lots of worthwhile problems for specific market segments. It's really just about understanding the dynamics of your business and who you're really, solving that problem for as well. And so then, the clarity of the application in this way, the simplicity that you can bring to that analysis of your business is key, because mentors will be looking for keywords to see that you understand both the problem and the approach that you're taking, and to know how they can lean in and support you best. Finding your allies early. This really relates to what we'll talk about next, our open house program, which includes what has previously been our office hours program. This is about having some champions in your corner looking out for you before this process even starts. And it's probably the most valuable thing that a founder can do in the lead up to accelerator applications, because name recognition, awareness of your business, awareness of you as a founder is automatically going to add, add value to your application by sheer kind of recognition, as I said. So that's something that you can do to kind of reach out to existing mentors that you know are in our community, even better, perhaps founders who've come through our programs that will be able to give you an honest opinion about how to approach this process, and actually test your approach with them, and use that insight in preparing an even better application. Do you want to take the last few points there, Sasha?
Yeah, sure. And I think we've already touched fairly heavily on the unit of progress and the kind of tell your story. I think I can see a couple of questions coming through in the chat here, just around the financial investment side of things. So before we jump into finding your allies and what the best approach to doing that is, which we're going to touch on in a second, it's just there are two things that I want to just highlight for everyone in the audience. One is there is a financial investment component to being accepted into the Startmate Accelerator. So we invest $75,000 into each company that gets accepted into the cohort. And that $75,000, there's kind of two very simple investment rules. One is if you've never raised before, we invest that money at a $1 million valuation, so 7.5% equity in your business. And if you have raised before, then we actually just match the terms of your previous raise. So if you've raised at a $4 million valuation, we invest that 75K at a $4 million valuation. So kind of pretty basic two branch rule. And then that links to kind of what Lauren was talking about before, actually, and just the unique thing about the model is that the mentors in the program each individually have some skin in the game with your company. So the $75,000 that we invest in you is actually a fund that we raise from our mentors. So we have kind of a pretty high bar for what we consider a mentor, and for them to be a mentor in Startmate, they actually have to invest their personal money into a fund, which then gets invested into your company. And the kind of really cool thing about that is creates this nice incentive structure where if you succeed, they succeed. It gives them more financial money to plow into the next generation of founders. And then ultimately there's this nice circle of life, so that where the successful Startmate alumni come out the other end, they kind of return as mentors. But it's really this like incentive alignment piece that is unique about the Startmate model, because they actually all have a piece of your company, so are incentivized to give you the best advice, make the best introductions for you, and really just kind of help you in any way that they possibly can to succeed. So I think that's the kind of key thing to highlight there.
Hey, Sasha and Lauren, a couple of other questions we can maybe tackle quickly. I think these ones are fairly quick answers. If someone's applied before and not made it through, I'm guessing they can apply again. I'm pretty sure.
Do you want to answer that, Jason?
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually for a lot of startups, especially if you're not like super baked into the Sydney ecosystem, you should probably see this as like a long-term thing. It's really, really hard to have the level, like the ability and the network and the understanding of the process to get through on the first try, although I'm sure some people do manage it. I'm going to assume it's very hard because I didn't. But yeah, like for sure, I think like anything that's really difficult to achieve, you know, just keep on hustling, keep on trying and improving, keep applying. It's definitely worth it.
I think that's right, Jason. And I think it has to do with the familiarity piece, but it is actually, it's this relationship basis that is, you know, what forms venture capital and other investing relationships. To build confidence in a person over time is still part and parcel of the Startmate ethos, and to be able to see somebody making progress between one application and the next is almost like the most outstanding thing that we have to go on. I think the challenge is the timing for that particular startup, where, you know, they may not be quite ready for one batch, but by the next batch they've perhaps progressed to a point where you know, that they you know, it doesn't make as much sense for them, but I think we really believe that catapult that you can get on is still worth reapplying for and seeing how you can kind of leverage it and take it to the next level.
Absolutely. I'll dig into that a little bit more when I do my story at the end, because we definitely learned a lot from office hours all the way through. Next question is, have you guys yet planned out the next cohort after this one? Not to get too far ahead, but perhaps Damien's just thinking he's maybe not quite ready for now, or working strategically about which one to apply for. Have you guys planned ahead on that one?
Yeah, I can kind of jump in there, I suppose.
Look, I was going to make a joke about us taking a 6-month holiday, but we all know it's not true. So
yeah, I know. We don't get to take holidays at Startmate because we run programs kind of all year round. So if you're not quite ready for this intake, then the next intake, kind of the process kicks off, and where we are today is kind of October, November at the end of the year for a January cohort kickoff for the summer 22 cohort. So we run, it's kind of 2 6-month blocks and 1 3-month program at the start of the year, 1 in the second half of the year.
Yeah, it's about 3 months, isn't it? 12 weeks, the actual program. So 12 weeks and then a little bit of post work, and then back into preparing for the next one, and off you go again.
Yeah, exactly.
God love yous.
Again, that's where applying before you're perhaps ready can be a good thing, I think, if we can see that unit of progress. So it's a lightweight enough application in that first instance that we're trying to make it easy for people to at least put their show what they're up to and what they're working on, and we can build that relationship then over the next 6 months. So I would definitely encourage applications either way.
Yeah, and the application process is a great validation, and you kind of want to be able to answer all those questions really, really well, and the more you try and answer them well, the greater your story building becomes, and the articulation of what you're trying to do. So yeah, the process is, I would suggest, if you think you're too early, just do it. You'll learn a lot. You might get through, you might not, but next time it'll be a lot easier. And then the next question here is, does a founder have any say in the selection of their mentors if they are successful? Of course, I can answer that, but I'm happy to leave that to you guys as well.
I don't know, Jason, do you feel like you had a say in who your mentors were?
Yeah, well, we had a bit of a unique situation where, so as I understand it, if I can share this, at the moment, well, in our cohort, we had a partner, which is like our key mentor. They're the person that really guides you through and helps you get the most out of it. And then we had a squad in our cohort, which I think was a relatively new thing, but worked extremely well. And we did have a say. And I know that was the first cohort where there was real involvement from the cohort in who who we were able to work with. I guess, it worked really well. It was great that the mentors were open to that. We got an incredible squad, like the people we worked with, from Atlassian and Canva and UpGuard. You just couldn't find people like that in normal circumstances or even close. We really couldn't believe it. And then there's like 90 mentors in total in the cohort, and they're all totally available and for you to go and work hard and get them around your startup. So yeah, you do have a lot of say, and it's a really great opportunity from my perspective.
Awesome. Yeah, and just to emphasize what Jason was saying, there's the whole pool of mentors that everyone in the Startmate network and family. So there's 95 mentors, and then there's kind of hundreds of alumni that you can reach out to get advice from as well. And they're all kind of open to access however you'd like. And I think generally speaking, for people that are kind of incredibly busy and successful in their own right, they're very responsive to being able to find time to sit down with you during the program and workshop problems. And then there are these core groups of mentors that will actually kind of be by your side on a weekly basis during the program. And you do at the start kind of get a say. There are these kind of speed dating rounds where you'll get to identify ones that you really liked, and they can identify companies that they resonated with. And then we'll kind of construct the ideal batch of mentors for you to work with through the program.
There's a little bit of magic in that too, right? Sometimes you don't know what you need. And, the most unlikely mentors will surprise you in what they can actually bring to your business as well. So there's a bit of trust in the process as well.
Exactly.
We've also had a question around IP, which can be a tricky one for very, very early stage companies. I guess during the application process, I don't recall an NDA. I'm not normally a big fan of NDAs in the early stage. I presume you guys are going to say the same thing, but how would you sort of answer that question about how to answer the application process if you're you know, you do have some sort of, you know, patentable IP?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one we get a lot. And even if you just look at the cohort that just wrapped up, there were a couple of deeper tech companies trying to turn seaweed into plastic, or doing things with battery technology and new kind of battery materials, which are kind of very IP heavy. A couple of considerations, as Jason said, like just because of the volume of companies that we're seeing every year, there's no formal NDA process, because just from a regulatory perspective, and a kind of obligations perspective, it would be impossible for us to track and manage seeing and signing 500, 600 new NDAs every 6 months. So it's really, we at Startmate kind of have a code of conduct, which basically outlines how mentors and the Startmate team will manage your information and kind of behave with the information that they receive about you during the course of the program. It's very reputation based. So, you know, if there is a very strong incentive for us, like, to treat your information with adequate care. And then the other thing is, the application is supposed to be high level, grabbing people's attention, and not necessarily about the specific mechanics of your technology when it comes down to like the actual patentable process. So it's kind of finding that line for you if you do fall into that category of, okay, well, what can you share about what's interesting and exciting about what you're building and how it relates to the problem that you've identified in your problem statement. Without needing to really dive deep into the, okay, well, this is the mechanics and here's the plan and this is the patent application. We don't expect that level of detail, and that'll just be kind of teased out in the conversation throughout the several rounds of the application funnel.
Awesome. Well, I think we're up to date with questions for now. So
I think there was just one more that I saw come through, which Sascha might want to answer as well. The Founders Fellowship, which I didn't mention in our earlier slide, which is kind of, I guess, the next big reveal. On the Startmate calendar. Sascha, what's the Founders Fellowship?
What's the Founders Fellowship? That's a great question. No, we launched at Demo Day. For those of you that were in the audience, we launched the Founders Fellowship to kind of sit alongside the Accelerator as an offering for founders across the region. Really, if you think of the Accelerator as being that perfect kind of pouring petrol on the fire and making that unit of progress in your business that you've already started to test hypotheses around, and you're really ready for that kind of upward trajectory, the Founders Fellowship is almost for that earlier stage where you've identified a problem that you're really passionate about, you think you want to start a business, but you might not quite know how to start, or you need a technical co-founder to help you along that journey. It's for that earlier branch and that earlier step where we're bringing people together to test co-founder relationships, test and validate several ideas or problems that you're trying to solve, and then kind of make that first piece of traction, which you can then build on to go and raise around post the Founders Fellowship, or even apply for the Accelerator. So I almost see that as being a kind of a funnel for the Accelerator if you're at the point where you're not quite ready to apply.
And from a founder's perspective, like, you know, coming from the Gold Coast and you know, if I had had access to a program like that, I think it would have launched my startup career forward by about 2 years in the first 3 to 6 months. There is a huge amount of experience and knowledge and systems and hacking that goes on around like this Startmate ecosystem. So I couldn't recommend that highly enough to the really early stage companies and first time founders.
Yeah, and I think I saw a question there just in the chat of what's the cost of the fellowship. So for that Founders Fellowship, the cost, there's 2 price points. One, if you're fully dedicated and working full time on building a business and solving a problem, then it's free. You know, we want to be able to help founders and kind of bring the best founders into our networks that we possibly can. And if you're fully committed, then the kind of cost of the program is 0. If you're still working part-time in a current job and you're just using it to explore a range of kind of options and potentially test ideas to see whether you want to make that leap to being full-time, then to kind of get that commitment and get your skin in the game to kind of bring it up to the point of the founders that are dedicated full-time, we charge a $1,000 fee plus GST to kind of bring that incentive alignment and really get you committed to throwing your all into the program.
Love that. That's cool.
Jason, there's another question around, I guess, the timing allocated to the program. And maybe if this is a good time to kind of hand over to you for a bit more of your, I guess, in-depth experience on the program application to kind of all the way through, if you're happy to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so I'm such a huge advocate for Startmate. I think perhaps sometimes I'm like a bit too supportive. I don't know. I mean, Startmate's full of so many ambitious and positive people, and like it just resonates so well with me. I know how much it's helped myself personally and my company, so I don't think I'm overselling it, but yeah. So I first sort of really heard about Startmate, I think around a year ago or so, and I signed up for office hours, and I first of all just couldn't believe the caliber of the mentors that would just take some time. And one thing I've learned, people with a lot of experience can give you a huge amount of value in the shortest amount of time. Like it really doesn't take weeks or months of mentoring or cost you tens of thousands of dollars to have these major breakthroughs in your company. So I did office hours. We did that. I met Dean McAvoy, one of the mentors from Startmate, in that first office hours. And I sort of made it a mission of mine to build Dean into a supporter of Cake. And over the course of the next month or two of really working hard to build Dean's trust, Dean ended up coming on to the Cake team. So a huge early win for our company. And I sort of did that because I could see the opportunity and the knowledge and the experience in the Startmate ecosystem. So yeah, we didn't make it through the first time we applied to Startmate. So we applied. I think, yeah, we were not successful. I honestly can't remember if I don't think we made it through to the interviews.
You were close.
I was close. Oh, thanks, Sash. Thanks. Appreciate that.
Didn't quite make it there.
But look, everyone is where they are, and I think with the right mindset and seeing that opportunity, I was like, right, this is definitely happening for me next time. So yeah, we went on a bit of a mission to make it happen. Worked a lot with Dean, and Dean sort of helped us with a bunch of learnings that the company needed to go on. It's amazing how unless you have these mentors, these really, really experienced people that sort of think and breathe and eat like scalable companies, you just can make so many mistakes. So Dean helped us like remove a lot of those mistakes from our business model and our thinking, and helped us be more ambitious. And so by the next time we applied, I think we smashed it. I think I'm safe to say our second application was pretty good.
That must have felt so good.
Yeah, it was huge, like it was a, little startup from the Gold Coast, gets into Startmate, and then, it was just another beginning. There's so many new beginnings in startup land. Like even now we finished Startmate, it feels like a new beginning, and we're just about to lock our new round in. It feels like another beginning. So I think it was a really awesome experience. We learned a lot. We got to meet incredible people, but I did office hours the second time as well. I just value the time of these experts so highly. I think even recently I applied for open house, and Ryan was like, dude, come on, you've just been through the program. I don't think you need to do that. But I guess that just reflects how highly I value the time and the advice. So yeah, and then we got in. So huge opportunity. Week one was massively about, I guess, resetting our ambition. We're pretty ambitious guys, Kim and Johan and I, but we really got, I guess, challenged to go bigger and go harder. Probably the biggest learning we got out of the first week was to be more customer focused. So it's so hard in a startup to really understand what that means. You think about it, you talk about it, you read all the books, you try and talk about the customer and the problem, but we weren't doing it enough. We weren't thinking about it enough. We weren't doing it often enough. So the first week, you hear the word customer about 7,000 times. And so we reset our whole company goals to be our Startmate goals. So we wanted to do 100 customer interviews in 3 months, which is obviously a huge stretch for us. We were, at the time, I think we were doing 5. So, a huge increase in the number of customer interviews we were doing. And that was specifically designed to help us scale faster. Our second goal was around scaling. So we were trying to do 20% month-on-month customer growth, which is obviously not an easy thing to do. And so, yeah, we managed to hit both those goals during the time we were at Startmate, which was huge, and the whole team was buzzing, and it not only helped from that perspective, but the whole team was more aligned. Our whole company was more aligned. We used to have meetings about how many meetings we had, and after being so aligned around the customer, we didn't need to do that anymore, because everybody kind of knew what they needed to do all the time. So the customer focus was a huge thing. The ambition was a huge thing, really doubling down on that, like biting off a lot and then really going for it. Like a little bit of a tip for the roulette. So when you do get to the roulette, if and when you get there, it's only 10 minutes. It's totally full on. Make sure your first 1 or 2 minutes is super punchy and high level. You want to talk about why this is super important, how big the market is. Make it really, really easy for the people to think, how huge a problem this is. Maybe make a 1 to 2 minute video if you've got a product, or if you've got something technical or complicated, or maybe get a little bit of a video for that section, so that you can just really get that done really succinctly and really, really well. And then you can save the last 5 minutes for a bit of Q&A. So that's a bit more sort of like tactical stuff. But for me, I think, two of the biggest things you got to do as a startup founder is learn and build your network. And, you really couldn't learn faster or build a better network than from Startmate. So we're super grateful for that. So with regard to what is it, the unit of that unit of progression or unit of progress. So Cakes was, as I said, 20% month-on-month growth, which we achieved. What happens within Startmate when you achieve these incredible goals, you've got, so many great people like keeping an eye on you. And so, going back to something that you mentioned, raising capital is one of the hardest things you can ever do. It's like a full-time job on top of a full-time job, and it's super new to you. But one of the great advantages you have within Startmate is you're doing the hardest part of the capital raise in open, in front of all the best investors you can find. So, while you're learning and scaling your company in an incredible way that you previously couldn't have achieved, you're also doing a lot of the really hard work of getting your capital raise done. So, I think it's super, super hard work. Talking about the time that you have to allocate, like you pretty much have to forget about time. I would just pick one thing that you really need in your life other than your startup, like whether it's like your family or whatever. And then every other minute is your startup. That's basically how I allocate my time. And I think that's kind of how you need to think about allocating your time. And like if you're a single founder, or if you've got a job, just think about like this is going to just consume your life for the foreseeable future. But until you're willing to do that, you're probably going to have a pretty bad time anyway with the challenges that you have to undertake. So it's a great shock to the system in a good way. So were there any other things that you guys thought maybe I should chat about today, Lauren or Sash?
Well, I think the interesting thing about that point is the reality of how fast the 12 weeks goes, which is why you need to do that. And I think it's the distinction between maybe the question in the chat around what our program content commitments are, which I would say, and I think you would agree in terms of it's up to you what you attend from a content perspective, but really it's about how you can spend that time focused on your company goals, which is why it's kind of all consuming, right?
Yeah, we really love the fact that we didn't have to sit through a lot of content, like we're a pretty, as much as we wanted to learn, like we've got a dozen people on the team, we're super smart and we've achieved so much already. And we love the fact that we could, because our focus was growth, so we could sit in on the growth ones and sit out of the hardware ones. And, we could really pick and choose which sessions that we went to. There was the weekly all hands for accountability, which, having real accountability every week and every month is super, super important. I think sometimes people do a startup because they think they want to be their own boss and they don't necessarily have to, report to people, but you do want that accountability. You do need these external motivators to help keep you honest and things like that. So yeah, the weekly and monthly reporting was really good. The sessions were incredible. I didn't actually talk about those, did I? But we had sessions on marketing and funnel building and like enterprise sales, product-led growth. There was stuff about mental health, which is I'm a huge believer in. If you're not looking after your health and your mental health, I think you're really going to make startup life hard for yourself. So yeah, the content was great. The sessions weren't overly onerous. I think on average we probably did 3 or 4 hours a week of actual like contact time, and the rest of it was just building the company. So and then while we were building the company, we just had all these amazing resources and people around to help us.
Yeah, I think just to kind of emphasize that point on the question, what's the contact time like? There are a couple of things to consider. Jason mentioned the weekly all hands, where you do come together as a group of peers and kind of talk to each other about what you achieved, what you didn't achieve, why, and kind of share some of those learnings. And that's the kind of key accountability piece. It's also the only thing that we kind of expect you to turn up to every week. Kind of outside of the all hands, as Jason was saying, it's kind of pick and choose. It's this buffet concept where everyone's going to have different goals. Everyone's going to have different mentors and different sessions that are relevant to them. And it's really just about us helping you figure out the best way to leverage the value that is in the Startmate network, and then supporting you to go and leverage that. So to hit your goals. So your Startmate goals are going to be aligned with your 1 and 10 year company goals. So really it's just kind of helping you move as quickly as you possibly can on the things that are already important to you. And on that concept of scaling yourself, I think it's just you get in what you put out. As Jason was saying, it's all about the value. Is so much of the value is in the network. So if you leverage that for that condensed 12-week period, it could make the next 12 years of your life that much easier. So I think it's just making those decisions up front about how you want to leverage it.
There was just a comment there from, oh, sorry, Jason, you want to finish that?
Yeah, and the ask as well. So every week we got an opportunity to ask for something. So we put it in a Slack group with 500, pretty successful and connected people. And it really felt like no matter what the ask was, there'll be someone there to help. And, a lot of these things is really, really hard to do. Otherwise, I don't even know how you would do some of them. So it's not always just your mentoring sort of tight group. Where you haven't asked, Sascha and Lauren are regularly in there sort of connecting in other people from the ecosystem to help you solve those problems as well.
And that speaks to the last comment that was just put in the chat there around, yes, the funding in this day and age with the kind of venture capital ecosystem being more robust isn't going to make a huge difference to your kind of bottom line necessarily. That $75,000 is just part of the offer, but what the real offer here is the mentor community. And to the question in the chat, this is a community for life, which Jason is now kind of on the other side of seeing that. Those mentorship relationships don't actually go away. This is about being plugged in and in fact, kind of doubling down on some of those relationships with past founders, with the existing mentors, with new mentors as they come in. And then to the point that we made earlier, this is about now the whole startup ecosystem being plugged into talent, being plugged into other investors, and how you then leverage the kind of full extended Startmate family as well, ongoing.
Yeah, I would say our mentor group and advisor group is 10x what it was 6 months ago. And being part of you really do feel like being part of the alumni is going to just be, super valuable for us in the long term. And it's not just a taking thing as well, like we want to help. So everyone's in there helping. It's not just, going in there and asking for things. So just being able to get in and help other people in there too is like super great opportunity because there's so many awesome companies in there. And there was a new innovation in the current cohort around the water coolers, which I know was took a few times, Sascha working hard, trying to solve a little bit of a problem about cohort engagement. And it was really, really nice to meet the other 18 founders, and we all sort of reasonably well connected, even though it was virtual. So everything in COVID world, the virtual, creates a lot of opportunity for startups around the country. It does create a bit of a difficulty in engagement, but I really didn't feel that. And, with some of these sessions around, having like the founders of the cohort as friends and colleagues and peers as well is super valuable too.
So I guess with the time we have left, talking about where to from here, you know, the most important thing that we have coming up as a lead into the accelerator is actually our open house program, which, as we mentioned, has previously been known as office hours. Now office hours is a component of this. And what we're trying to do here, you know, for anyone who's still got questions about the Startmate experience, this is the best way to taste what that process looks like. So with open house, we are including our one-to-one mentor matching with incredible mentors and investors across the community and founders as well. So that's the central component of the program, but we are also this year expanding that to include some of the content topic areas. My battery is about to die. I'm in dire straits up here, people. Extra content around different topics, whether it's fundraising, whether it's your financial modeling, you know, even just hearing founder journeys from mentors like Kate Morris, who's part of our community. We're really trying to give that sense of what it means to engage with the Startmate ecosystem, but also to connect with your fellow founders, because as Jason said, that's something that becomes this kind of constant through line to the experience. So we're trying to bring all those elements into our open house program and literally open up the doors. So consider the open house a precursor to what's to come. And if you are wanting to apply for the accelerator, it would be a huge disadvantage, is the honest truth, if you didn't come through the open house program and experience all of what is on offer, and to be able to meet some of those community members who will ultimately be, you know, looking to make the decisions around the companies that we have in our cohort. So the application's open now. You can log on to startmate.com/events and check out the open house program information and apply through that website. Anything to add on that, Sascha?
I think it's just to emphasize what Jason was saying before, is it can really just help get your name in front of the mentor cohort that's ultimately going to be making decisions on who makes the final cut for the accelerator as well. So, you know, with Jason's example, he met someone through office hours, now open house, who helped him, you know, get ready and communicate his progress in a more robust way for the next accelerator intake. But we even see, you know, companies that are kind of post Series A who have a particular problem, and they're coming to our mentors for help on that. So just an example, there are a couple of Blackbird portfolio companies who I saw applied earlier today that are kind of well beyond the realms of kind of accelerator, but are still trying to get access to these networks to kind of help them solve particular problems. So it's really just an amazing opportunity to get access to some of the best operators, investors, and previous founders in the ecosystem to help you solve whatever problem you need solving. So that's kind of the real core value of what open house is and what it's all about. So just kind of helping you solve a problem. That's all I'd have to say, Laura.
Yeah, perfect. That's all there is to say. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, the real call to action here is check out open house, get applications in, use it as a test bed for your Startmate Accelerator application. We are trying to make the process really seamless this year, where, you know, one kind of feeds into the next. So we'll be able to kind of pre-fill a lot of information. You'll get a chance to update and revise anything that you want to based on the conversations that you have through open house. So don't see it as kind of two separate processes, but see it as one continuous process to refine that message and really be able to put your best foot forward. But we're really excited about what we're going to be able to bring to you this time. So applications before next Friday, but the sooner you get it in, the sooner we'll start matching you with the incredible mentors, because we're going to start kicking off that allocation process early next week. So, you know, don't delay.
Make sure you apply. Everybody on here, please apply. You won't regret it.
Exactly. Yeah, but look, that's. I mean, Sascha and I are both obviously here for any questions. Follow us up. I put our Twitter handles at the front of this deck, but you can find us online at Lauren and Sascha at startmate.com.au. Obviously, Jason and the Cake team will happily answer any questions about the experience from their side. But yeah, look forward to seeing you all in our house.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Sascha. That was awesome. Yeah, obviously I can't speak highly enough of Cake's time in Startmate. I do implore you all to apply for office hours. Go through office hours, as Sascha said. It's definitely the place to start. Yeah, and if you need to chat to me about anything founder related, let me know. But yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Sash. Enjoy your day, Lauren.